Hey, what up guys? Today on my RC channel we're going to talk just a tiny bit about this cooling unit that I ended up printing for my X-maxx. It works pretty good. What I did discover though is that with the stock motor and heat sink, it still thermals in about the same amount of time. But it cools down much faster. So it's actually a heat saturation deal with getting the heat from the inside of the motor to the outside of the motor to the heat sink. Probably not much to be done about that. However, it does get it back to driving temperature much faster. And it looks cool. It looks pretty dang cool. I did have to get this BEC to run it because the Traxxas BEC that it comes, inside the ESC wasn't quite enough to run the fans and all of the radio equipment and would burn out pretty easily. It did add a couple of hot laps, to the actual driving before it went into thermal shutdown, or at least thermal throttling. So, I mean, it does help. Not as much as I had really hoped. I'd really hoped to be able to just run the speed gearing at all times and have it just be cool. But that just wasn't the case. It's going to need a much more significant heat sink, maybe. And I might experiment with that in the future. I might talk to my boss about, since I work in a machine shop, about possibly machining some kind of bigger heat sink, something with much more thermal mass. Maybe I can get my hands on a piece of copper. Maybe somebody out there wants to donate a piece of copper I could use. This is the BEC I ended up using. These are some fans I'm going to try out in the future that are a little thicker than those King valve fans. They have the same bolt pattern, but they are thicker, so I did have to run thicker screws. I'm going to put all the links below for this stuff. This BEC will run 6 to 36 volts, which is 2 to 8S, and is adjustable for the output voltage. Since I run 8S in that truck, I needed the 8S BEC. If you run it off of 4S and just run it off of one of the ends of your batteries, you will actually cause a pretty big imbalance between your packs. And since I use these plugs in my X-maxx, these are the QS8 plugs. Is that right? Yeah, QS8. They are anti-spark plugs and they have a built-in resistor, but that just preserves the bullets inside there. These are the base components fresh off the printer. This is a base. I print it like this. I printed this one with 0 supports, and this one with 0 supports. This one I printed at a single wall with a 1mm layer. I'm sorry, with a 0.3mm layer height, with a 1mm bottom, 1mm top, one single wall, 10% infill. So this part's very light, and it actually does basically no work. I printed this with a 1mm nozzle. You could make that lighter by printing it with like a 0.4 nozzle and possibly one wall. It's not a structure item. It is only for airflow, to smooth the airflow going into the fans. This piece, however, is a structure item. This one here, for the usable one I printed, this one's like the prototype one. I ended up running like 4 or 5 walls with my 1mm nozzle to make it strong enough, and 10% infill, which was fine. But as you can see, it fits these thicker fans just the same as it does those King valve fans. However, I'm kind of hoping... However, I am kind of hoping to be able to use these fans and possibly be able to get away with running my speed gearing at all times. I want to be able to cool this thing enough to use my speed gearing at all times. Anyways, I'm going to have links to the STL files to print those on your own down below. If you guys are interested in purchasing some, contact me via Facebook, Chester Whiting. Not super difficult to find. There's not a lot of Chester Whitings. Find me on Facebook or Instagram, MyRCLive, at MyRCLive, and hit me up. I will gladly print you one up with a mild fee. I am selling the STL files for, I think it was $6.25, just to make $5 per cell for my channel. so I can, you know, keep building these cars for you guys, keep experimenting with stuff, and keep giving you guys tips. Alright guys, it still reached thermal shutdown after 7 minutes of full throttle driving. That was with the 19 tooth pinion and the 46 tooth spur gear. Here you can still see it's under limited throttle. The thermal throttle. Alright. My cooling fan. I just beat the crap out of everything. Feel all sorts of heat coming out of this. It actually feels like the thermal shutdowns on the ESC. The ESC is hot. Alright, here's the switch for the VEC. Alright. And I'm going to shut it down because it is hot. Just after a few minutes, it's back up. It did cool down pretty quick. Ooh, this thing is scary with the speed gearing in here. Okay, yeah, I'm really shutting it down now. But it's just, you know, X-maxx bashing. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for leaving a comment. Thanks for hitting that like and the subscribe button and the notification bell so you hear when I get a new video up. You guys have an excellent day, excellent weekend, happy Memorial Day, and God bless and praise Jesus.